Hello and welcome to a .com episode of the Drywall Podcast. I am your host, Nick Harmon. With us today, Brandon Hunter out of North Bend, Washington, joins us from his beautiful mountain retreat. Brandon is a 50-year-old powerhouse who started All Wall online e-commerce shop back in the day. But that's not all he did. We explore his windy path of success as it travels through the fabric of the drywall industry. If you can name a product in the drywall industry, it's likely he's worked with that team in some capacity.
So this is awesome that you're doing things like this.
Thank you.
Podcasts,
Yeah.
Focused on, putting a little love into this market we call the walls and ceilings industry.
Yeah.
Such a niche market, and I love it when I see it. Doesn't really matter who it comes from. I love it when I see good content because the users deserve it, right? It's what they do every day. They work really hard. Yeah. It's fun for them to come across some things that are not only educational but entertaining. It's good.
Yeah.
It's great.
From Drywall Nation to SurPro Stilts, he's burrowed his way through the chasms of the drywall industry and beyond. Join me as we explore the history of Brandon Hunter in part one of this two-part series. This episode of the Drywall Podcast and all of the episodes of the Drywall Podcast in the month of June are brought to you by Rocket City Drywall out of Huntsville, Alabama. Not only are they contributing to the success of the Drywall Podcast, but you can listen to owner Alana Black's story on episodes 96 and 97 if you so choose. Alana discusses her path to owning this thriving drywall retailer and how that path enabled her to discover a new product, back to earth, which she is now selling. Not many women get to say that they learned how to drive behind the wheel of a forklift at 8 years old, but that's just one of many skills Alana learned from her grandfather, Charlie, at Rocket City Drywall. She's owned the mom and pop supply yard in Huntsville since 2016 and has dedicated her life to preserving the legacy of her family business. Serving residential and commercial construction, she promotes old school business values while pushing her industry to be ever growing. She reminds us to never underestimate the little giants. Curious about being a guest on the Drywall Podcast? You can reach out to me directly at info@frescoharmony.com. I would love to hear from you, or you can call me 505-400-9313. Tell me why you'd like to be on the podcast, and we'll get you on. But for now, Brandon Hunter on the 99th episode of the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it.
Hey there, what's up, man?
There he is.
Yeah, good morning.
Is it beautiful in the lovely Pacific Northwest?
Man, it's calling for clouds today and somewhere in the 60s, I think. So it is pretty right now. We got the sun out. It's kind of where I'm sitting. It's kind of beating down.
Is that a melon hat? Is that what they call that? A melon hat? You're
yeah. It's a melon. Big melon.
I've been looking at those because they look cool. Now you're not in Seattle. You are in Redmond?
North Bend.
North Bend.
North Bend, it's about 25 miles or so east of Seattle. You got a couple major freeways that go through Seattle. You've got I-5 that goes right through Seattle. Yep. And then you've got a couple freeways that go to the east towards the mountains and that kind of thing. I-90 is one of those. I think that goes all the way to Chicago. Anyway, yeah, we're off I-90 about 25 minutes or so
Okay.
east. So it's nice out here. It's definitely towards the mountains, so it's, really green,
Yeah.
a lot of evergreens. You know how it
Yeah.
is. You're from
Oh yeah.
Washington too.
Hmm.
You're familiar. It's not like the good old days of the 90s, kind of when I was coming up.
Right.
Um, I think we're kind of close to the same age. I think we
Yeah.
are. So,
How you're 40,
yeah,
are you
49 forever. No, 50 actually. Last
you're
year,
50.
just turned
Congratulations.
50 last year. But
Okay.
I'm coming up already on 51.
I get
So,
a little excited
yeah,
when somebody's older than me because I'm 48. So it's getting less and you know what I mean? It's getting less and less. On my soccer team, like I'm the oldest player now. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's in many instances I'll be around people and it's like, I'm the oldest fucking person at this table.
dude.
What
Trust me.
happened?
Trust me, I get it completely. 100%. Yeah,
Cool.
it's odd, You always I think you always just feel young inside, right? And then you go look in the mirror and you get reminded of the actualities, right? We can't
Yeah.
stop time. So it's all
No.
good. Things
Yeah.
change. It's really cool to kind of evolve through life that way, right? You start off young, dumb, and full of all kinds of stuff, and then you get a little older, you reach our maturity, and you see the world a little differently, but you still got that youth. It's always a part of you. So
I
no
like
matter
that.
what you look like on the outside, you'll still have it in there somewhere. Yeah.
Young, dumb, and full of stuff.
Full of stuff. Yes. That's the t-shirt. Young, dumb, full of stuff.
Brandon Hunter with SurPro Stilts now, maybe with other. We'll get into the thick of it. I met Brandon. I feel like I met you in Dallas. Maybe we talked a little bit in Dallas 2 years ago, but we definitely talked for a bit at the AWCI Build 23 show in Vegas. And I was always fascinated. And I think I wanted to do a podcast last year. We just crossed over 2 years of podcasting. You are going to be episode 99. And then Paps Dugan. Do you know him? Have you heard of him?
No.
But he was the very first episode of the Drywall Podcast. He's going to be episode one, and then we're going to have him back for episode 100.
Awesome.
And yeah, yeah. So 100 podcasts. You're 99. It's been a good run. We talked at the booth for quite a while. I remember, and we talked about your backstory a little bit. I was like, oh man, you would be a good podcast interview for the podcast, and it sort of, like a lot of things, it sort of settled down, and then all of a sudden you came back into focus most recently because of the Surrey, the Great Rocky Mountain Adventure, as it was called in Surrey, British Columbia, with Columbia Tools. And there was a bunch of companies that sponsored that event, SurPro being one of them. Brandon from what I've gleaned, then we had a long conversation on the phone. I missed you. We were ships passing in the night. I got up there a little later with this Trimtex corner bead that was a nightmare to get up there and nobody appreciated, but whatever. We got it on. And luckily, Cam made one video. Adriana? Is it Adriana?
I met Adriana up there. So yeah, we missed each other because it started on Monday. We went up on Sunday. My
Yeah,
folks actually live there. My dad and
oh,
his
okay.
wife live in the same similar town, a few miles away. So we went up there on Sunday. So we were there Monday and Tuesday, and I brought my buddy Travis with me. So it was a lot of fun. It's like the good old days. It was great to see those guys. It's been a while. I was in the drywall industry for a very for
Wait,
quite a long time, right?
what guy? What guys?
Um, well, all of them, honestly, every
Okay.
single person I met up there, I I think I was just, it brought back my youth. I was just energized. I felt great. I watching every single person that was up there do what they do, and then get a
Yeah.
kind of connect a little bit with the boys from Columbia, Elliot and
Yeah.
Aaron. We have quite a past, honestly. We've known each other for a very long time, but
Right.
we haven't worked directly with each other for a little while. So it was great to get the call from those guys. They're obviously kind of, pioneering some new stuff when it comes to content for drywall,
Yep.
which is really exciting, right? Because, how many times can you watch a joint be finished with a taping knife, right? Like, I think there's always going to be a need for that. And, I find myself watching these kinds of videos like for hours,
Yeah.
but still they're trying to you made a cameo, you made an appearance. I mean, you were actually just in a recent video with some real cinematic expression there. Like, wow. I was like,
Yeah. Fresco Harmony tried to take over
you
Columbia
did.
Tools.
Yeah, I
They
think
they were we were actually we made it into the facility. We actually had the facility, and we had guards. And Aaron, I mean, being the savvy entrepreneur that he is and passionate about his facility there, had the wherewithal to come take it back over. And
oh yeah.
in the end, it seemed like it worked out pretty well for everybody, but it was dicey.
You were close, man. You were close. You were close to
Yeah,
taking over the empire.
people
But
got injured.
that's the thing. Um, it's not it's a tough set of guys to go up against, man. You just
Yeah,
you have to compete with Colombia.
yeah,
You're gonna have a fight on your hands.
yeah.
They're really strong at what
It's a
they do.
machine shop. They got weapons. They have knowledge,
Well, they got
and
family. They got
they got
family
family. They
too,
run
right?
deep.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's cousins and uncles and wives and friends, and they put together a pretty tight team.
yeah,
If you end up working with Columbia, we came up with something. I worked with them a long time ago, and I came up with "Welcome to the Family" is like a tagline uh,
okay,
for some of the print stuff and web stuff that we did early on, and they still use it. And the thing is, um, I marketing, I've been doing it so long, I kind of just hate it at this point in a lot of ways, like what marketing stands for, right? Because marketing, in a nutshell, we're trying to sell something to somebody. And by the time you get to my age and you've
yeah,
sold so many things, you've sold everything, you've made a lot of people a lot of money,
yeah,
and you look back at it and you're just like, well, I really want to contribute to people that I like. I want to help people that, are just good soul, good people, right? Like you get to choose who you get to work with if you're lucky. At some point, you don't just have to take every job or everything that walks through the door or say yes to every client. You really get to choose who you get to work with. So I think I've been very fortunate that way. And going back to the point of the Columbia collaboration, the Great Rocky Mountain Adventure, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
what it really is a group of people that all share a certain synergy and energy for this niche that we work in, which
yeah,
drywall, you think every every place has a wall and a ceiling damn near in this entire world. Yet
yeah,
drywall is so niche, it's so tight knit, right? Um, it's crazy. And once you've been working in this industry for long enough, you start to know a lot of the players, right? And it just,
Yeah.
we say it's a small world, and it truly is a small world. And when you get
Yeah.
to drywall specifically, it's even smaller. So when you get a chance to make connections like that, and just you get to work with people that are inspiring and that kind of thing, like Cam and Gilbert Taping and
Yeah.
Wes and Sean from your hat there, Broly Stick. Um, Teak, Stephanie, like I've,
Uh,
I've been watching all these people, and Danny, right?
yeah. Yeah.
What an animal. I mean,
Yeah.
that guy,
Yeah.
I mean, if we could reproduce, we might have to have more hospitals. But if we could reproduce Danny's, right? If we could get
Yeah.
okay, you being the evil genius that took over Colombia, I could
Yeah.
see your next move. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just reproduce
Clone Danny.
clone Danny, and bam, we will be able to build a new country in the next 6 months. The guy is a
Yeah.
massive workhorse, and
Yeah.
so helpful. That's the
Yeah.
other thing, that once you start working with people that you like and you respect, like, you want to help them. You want to give them every piece of knowledge that you have, right? Like, you want to truly see them succeed. And sometimes, climbing the corporate ladders, this and that, you know, a lot of people have agendas, right? People hate the corporate ladder jobs and those 9 to 5s where they know that
Right.
Bill over in the next cubicle is trying to take their position. He'll do whatever it takes to get that promotion over them. And what I saw was just, I mean, soft touch, big hearts, trying to pass on their
A
skills.
lot of love all the way around. I get
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, and that is something I think that is being illuminated with
Yeah.
some of this strategy, marketing, going back to marketing strategy. That feedback on the Rocky Mountain Adventure is fantastic. I agree. And I think it's not only innovative in the drywall space, it's innovative in other businesses as well. This type of marketing, this coercion within the industry, I think is innovative across the board. I think it's really smart.
When other people see it, right? So other people see this stuff and other brands see this stuff, and they feel like they're missing out. And how do I be, how can I do something like this? Or how can I become a
Sure.
piece of this and get a part of this? Um,
Yeah.
it boils down to, in my opinion, like, look, try to find your authentic self. Don't be afraid to be that, right? Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to be what everybody wants you to be. But if you can be authentic, and then you can, like what you guys did such a great job of, is just shedding that, that any kind of fear of being goofy and being
Yeah.
fun and just throwing it
Yeah,
out there, man.
specifically, and I'll just from personal experience, the Gilbert Taping did a video. So they did a video that they wanted to jump over the camera. They had a thing that they're doing.
Yeah,
They're very good with doing video content. Deep down, I didn't want to do it.
yeah.
Like, I just didn't. This is not me. This is not the type of content that I create. It's goofy. But you
We
know
did
what?
something that I can't remember.
Everybody,
Somebody else threw the whole thing for a loop, and I don't know, did something a little different. I don't know if it was you.
I mean, Danny, like he jumped on his stilts for the final
Oh
cut.
yes, there we go.
Like,
Yeah,
he was always doing goofy stuff, but you just do it. You do it because you're collaborating. This is like the essence of collaboration. And I think being open, because I'm just like any drywaller, I'm naturally resistant to change. This is how I intrinsically connect with my audience. I get it. I don't want to change. I'm a drywaller. I made a product and I get it. I get that, it's challenging to get out of your comfort zone and do and even like I'm better than everybody else. Like I don't want to listen to what this person has to say. This is just what I see is that it's forcing this energy of, oh, we're all the same. Nobody is better than anybody else. We are all in the same trade. We're all in this together. We could all learn from each other. And to me, like this is what's being illuminated. And what the byproduct of that is community.
Well, community is huge. You see it there. It's definitely community, but you know, it's also a team. The best teams that we have out there, the ones that win the championships, the Stanley Cups, the Super Bowls, right? There's a reason. It's not just because they're each good at their position, right? They're not. It's not just that. It's that they work together and they have a synergy where they want to lift not only themselves up, but more importantly, everybody else up around them. When
Yeah.
you kind of go into your job, I mean, that's when the best things happen. When you go into your job and you think, okay, well, how can I contribute? How can I do something for somebody else? How can I do something for somebody else and pick up on that the energy that's gained from that? Like when you're just kind of paying forward every day with your actions and you are being humble, I just feel like greater things happen together. That community, sure. So this is awesome that you're doing things like this,
Thank you.
having podcasts
Yeah.
focused on, giving, putting a little love into this market we call the walls and ceilings
Mhm.
industry.
Yeah.
Such a niche market, and I love it when I see it. Doesn't really matter who it comes from. I love it when I see good content because the users deserve it, right? It's what they do every day. They work really
Yeah.
hard. It's fun for them to like come across some things that are not only educational but entertaining. It's good. It's
Yeah.
great.
And I want to give a little bit of background, 5 to 10 minutes on how you got to be this dude that developed all wall or whatever. You know what I mean? I want a little preface.
I was born in Nanaimo, British Columbia, right? Mom was
Okay.
born in Missouri. Dad was born in Saskatchewan, so I'm dual citizen. I've lived up in Canada, close to where we did the little collab with Columbia.
Okay.
And I've also, was raised down here. So I'm full on a Camerican.
Okay. A Camerican. I like that.
Yeah. So I get the two perspectives, and we got two different cultures. So it's cool to live on both sides and really understand,
Yeah.
the dynamic here in North America. Well, anyway, I mostly grew up down here. I did a few years of schooling up there, and I actually, small world, went to elementary school with a couple of the kids from Columbia Taping Tools. They're a few years younger than me, so while I was riding a skateboard, they were on big wheels, and I didn't really get to really know them back then, but they
Yep.
recognized me later in life and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, you're Brandon, right?" And
Yeah. Yeah.
they reminded me that, well, we actually went to school together in elementary school. But
That's crazy.
anyway, yeah, so I was raised down here, mostly did my schooling down here. Grew up in King County, Washington. I actually bounced around. I went to a lot of different schools. And I've lived in a lot of different areas around the Seattle area. But I'm a Northwest guy.
Hmm.
And I'd say I was in college. I was actually sneaking onto campus at University of Washington and kind of taking classes where I wasn't paying for them.
Oh, cool.
And
You're going to community college. You were sneaking into UW and just
yeah,
bootlegging
yeah,
classes.
Yep. I was going to Central. I was
That's
going to
awesome.
UW to get the experience and to, you know, try to learn a few things and get the university experience. So I didn't have, I didn't have the money for it. And
That's
I just
funny.
want,
What class? What? Give me one class that you bootlegged.
history, some psychology. Yeah. It was just kind of fun. It was kind of cool. And I just felt like that's where I needed to be. But when I was in school, my uncle actually gave me a call and was talking to me about the internet.
Sure,
And my mom gave me a call and was talking about the internet because at the time my mom worked at Boeing and which is a big aerospace company here in Seattle. And she's an artist. And Boeing put out an announcement and said, "Hey, we're you're on the list because we know you're an artist." She had entered some art contests at Boeing and won some things. And we're going to need to build a thing called a website, right? So we're getting all the artists we know in the company together, and we're going to start a little, you know, a group here, and we're going to figure out how to build a website internally for Boeing.
sure.
So anyway, my mom ended up having stacks and stacks of books at the time because the internet
And
was
they're sort of targeting you because they know Brandon is into this computers and this thing called the internet.
honestly, I probably have a little God-given talent in the art department just through my
Okay.
genes through my mom because my
Yeah,
mom's an artist. She's a fine artist. But
definitely.
no, this was at Boeing, and my mom started doing graphic design. My dad is a construction worker. My dad had a sheet metal construction company with his brothers. So I've
Okay.
always been around construction, and then I've been around art. On the mom's side, it was art. On the dad's side, it was construction, right? My
Yeah.
grandfather was a machinist. I've also been a machinist, in my younger years. So there was the natural kind of everything kind of came together with Columbia too. We just had shared so many similarities. But
Yeah.
anyway, no, it was my mom who started web design for Boeing. And I
Okay.
saw what she was doing on a computer with the first version of Photoshop, right?
Right.
And I just was interested.
And
And
this
she
would
gave
be
me a
later
book.
90s,
Yeah, this was the early 90s, you know.
early 90s. Okay. So
This
would
is
you
like this is in the beginning. This is like before Google. Okay.
okay.
Google
Yeah,
came
yeah.
out in 98. So this was
Okay.
like 95,
Okay.
96,
Yeah.
95,
Yeah.
96. And I was just in college and I started, yeah, I wasn't paying that much attention, right? Because
Yeah.
hey, we we were partying up at UW and we
Well,
were
and
being young
people
teenagers,
people don't
right?
think of we're carrying this thing around. People don't
Yeah,
think of like this didn't exist.
life before.
There was no internet. There was no connection. There was no
Life before
websites.
Google, man. Yeah.
So
Yeah, so just to kind of wrap it up a little bit, speed it up. The My uncle got into web design with a partner that ended up becoming like the chief financial officer of the Boys and Girls Clubs later on, did a bunch of stuff with Microsoft. He was a techie guy, but they started a little web design company. And I'm in college, and my uncle told me to come down. I got to check this thing out. And what I did is I started doing consulting, sales. I was talking to a lot of small businesses in the area about getting a website. And these would have been some of the first websites created for any of these companies. Yeah,
yeah,
honestly. I mean, it was a long time ago. So we started doing that. Things were simple, and I sold a lot of websites, and I wasn't getting paid. I ended up starting a web design company. I bought the one that I was working for eventually, and All Wall was one of those clients. Okay. So I
okay.
bought a company. The company had been paid. I worked a deal with that
And
company.
all wall was a small hole in the wall drywall
All
tool shop.
Allwall was a little store, a dusty, dirty little store with maybe it had about 4 or 5 employees, but it had been operating for about 10 years or so. I think they started in 91 and I met them in 98,
Okay.
maybe 7 years. But I didn't really start working like super closely with them. I mean, it was close, but I didn't launch the first drywall tool superstore online and e-commerce until 2001.
Okay. Oh, one.
So,
What was the name of that company? Sorry, that was a specifically a web building company,
yeah,
website building company. And that was called what?
Super Action Hero. I
Okay.
got offices downtown Seattle. I was in a building, the same building as
Yeah, but where'd you get
subcontractors.
money to buy this company? Do you
Well,
go
they
out
owed me a
and
bunch of money, man, is what happened. So
okay.
they owed me like, back then, I mean, a bunch of money. It's still a lot of money. They owed me
Yeah.
about 20 grand. Okay.
Okay.
But they were dismantling. I mean, the truth of the matter is, it was my uncle. His partner left to
Okay.
go work and do this deal with Microsoft, some big opportunity. When his
Okay.
partner, who understood all the technology side, took off, he was basically just sales and operations. He didn't
Okay.
understand the web stuff. Well,
Okay.
I had dug in and I had learned both sides of it, right? I learned the consulting side. I had learned how to build
Yep.
and design websites.
Yep.
So I had enough to take this over, and he was looking at getting into other opportunities. The problem is, and he's no longer with us, and this guy is
Okay.
was a magic man. I can't say
Okay.
enough good things about this guy,
What
but
was his
man,
name? What
you
was
would
his
have
name?
been his name was Kai,
Kai.
and you would have been
Shout
a guy
out.
you would have wanted to interview. He was the ultimate salesman,
Totally.
perfect, just like joke. Man, he had the best jokes. He the most charismatic dude. He is so cool. And they had sold some deals and they hadn't built the websites yet. Okay. So the deal was okay, for the 20 grand that we owe you, um, I'll give you the business. I'll give you the clients. It's up to you to figure out what you want to do with them. I mean, there's not much here. There's some hardware. I mean, you have your own computer that you use. I'm really just giving you the client database,
Yeah.
and it's up to you to keep those clients. He goes, but the problem is, I've sold like 5 websites that people have paid for and they haven't been built yet. And
Okay.
you're going to have to take on that responsibility and build them for free. All Wall was one of those websites.
Okay.
Yeah. So I met Jason Weiler, who was the son of the founder, Jeff Weiler. Jeff started the business in 91. Jason I think he's making, well, I know he's making some Volkswagen Audi air or Volkswagen air cooled parts. Um and yeah, he would be great.
Yeah.
Love Jason. We had a blast. I mean, bottom line is, when I met him in 98, we learned we learned that my cousin went to high school with him. I learned that Jason was my same class, 91.
Right.
We knew a lot of the same people. Um, you know, it was it was destiny, man.
Sure.
And we bounced, we were everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. And I would say, in the dating world, you're young and everybody thinks, oh yeah, I got to find somebody that's just like me. Find someone that shares my interests and likes the kinds of things that I like and blah blah blah. Well, experience, once you go through some of those relationships, experience will tell you, you know what? It might be better to actually have someone that's a little different than you and that balances you out,
Yeah.
right? They pick up the slack where you lack. and
Sure.
vice versa, you get to add some strengths to their weaknesses. And I think that's when you're really firing on all cylinders. So, um, but my company got bought out by a company called Next Host and Next Studio, which was a big web design and video production company in Seattle. And whereas I had about 170 small businesses as clients, they had maybe fewer clients, but bigger clients, right?
Okay. That puts you, I would say, probably at that point in your career, that was a major acquisition, and that for you, and that put you on the map and gave you some not only capital but a liberality to go and maybe work with all wall. You know these ballers over there. You're like, I want to go jump into the drywall world. That seems fun. I
Well,
don't
I
know.
had already kind of started working with Allwall and I had built them a website and I'd already been working with Allwall, right?
Okay.
Then I got bought out after
Yeah.
Allwall was already my client. And e-commerce wasn't a thing yet. But what I was challenged with at the new company was trying to figure out e-commerce for some of these big brands, right? Like K2,
Yeah.
Union
Yeah.
Bay, Nikon, like all these big brands were interested because a little company in Seattle was selling books in out of their garage. And everybody was,
Is this Amazon you're talking
yeah,
about?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody, all these other brands were paying attention, right? But it was very, very expensive and very complicated hardware. And you want to talk about outrageous prices? What I was selling to small businesses before is child's play compared to what e-commerce first cost,
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, we're talking millions of dollars to
Okay.
really do e-commerce right back then. Anyway, I had designed their logo and I designed some t-shirt graphics and I had done some different stuff for them. It'd be like get the call and hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And then you just are kind of like a hired gun and you just do what they ask and send it off and took you know, a, a sheet of paper that had a price list and turned it into kind of a digital price list online. That's about as effective as websites were back then. They
Yeah.
didn't really have much interactivity. They didn't have a lot to them.
Okay.
But so now I'm learning about e-commerce, working with some bigger brands, trying to figure that out while I'm over at Next. And we're in the dot-com boom. The dot-com demise happens where internet companies are going out of business left and right. And we were one of those companies. There were more companies and the same kind of companies that we experience today, like our Amazon Fresh that gets delivered. There were companies 24 years ago doing that. Okay. But they were ahead of their time
Yeah.
because the investors they didn't know how big it was going to be and they started pouring tons of money into these
Uh,
companies.
Okay.
So we could have a guy came up with a great idea and said, yeah, I'm going to do this dating site, it's going to be incredible. But what would happen is you're worth nothing one day, a bunch of debt, right? Until you get into a room with an investor and then they pump money into you. Now you're worth X, right? So your first round of funding, whatever, right? Now it sets your value. So these companies were becoming millionaires overnight without a product. And it kind of works that way today, guys. That's how the
Yeah.
world works,
Yeah.
So, but the guys like the smaller businesses at the time, when I say Allwall was a kind of just a one little store, they were pretty small.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford a big budget to do big e-commerce, right? So I said, well, just wait I'm gonna find some solutions that are more more affordable for
Why
small.
did you? It seems like you were kind of like you were zeroing into oh well, maybe the drywall industry a little bit. Why was this Why was this space attractive to you?
You know, there was no real plan, honestly.
Okay.
And I'd say that I kind of fly by the seat of my pants in
Yeah.
life, and I don't know, I let kind of just faith in the way of the world kind of guide me a little bit. And
Sure.
I don't worry too much. I know that hey, everything's always gonna be okay. And I'm just here to kind of serve and do my best wherever I am.
Smart.
And honestly, they were reaching out to me, and that's how it usually works, right? I usually just
Sure.
get a call out of the blue and just take it from there,
Okay.
and when they started calling, like everybody who's interested in e-commerce might be calling, it's just like, well, it's super expensive. I'm going to try to find some solutions because I'm getting enough calls from different people. Some of these past clients that I had kind of,
Yeah. You
right?
could have went in any direction you wanted here after like the next host acquisition. You could have,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, you could have done whatever you wanted to. Why on earth would you go work
Well,
with All Wall?
well, okay, so you gotta make sure, okay, does anybody have a viable product for the internet, right? Do they have a product that they stock, that they can ship out quickly, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, there's that. Is it a shippable product? Um, so all well fit some of those boxes,
Okay.
but here they are, the drywall community. We're talking 2001.
Yeah. It's
All
still,
well,
hey, it's still pretty bad, Brandon. Just no offense.
well, and there's so many places to get access, where you can just walk in and get access to board and mud and tape and some of the
Yeah. Yeah.
sundries and all of that. Like those bricks and mortars have been in place for a
Yep.
long time, right? But and people need to understand, like, why the internet? Why e-commerce? Why does it work? Why do manufacturers, retailers, why
Yeah.
do people want to sell online?
Yeah.
And I've built so many websites in so many different industries. The reason is, and it's so funny when you get into distribution models, like manufacturers, wholesalers, like two-steppers,
Uh-huh.
dealers, right? When you start separating, you start looking at it, um, there's always this fear, and I hear these
Yeah.
things like, well, if you guys sell online, right? We don't want to carry you if you sell online,
Okay.
they're trying to protect markets. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, early on, being a part of e-commerce since the beginning and still being into it today, I have a lot of key performance indicators, right? I have a lot of tribal knowledge. I've seen a lot of data in all kinds of industries to understand where things sell the most, average order values, all the data behind it in all kinds of industries. But, in this industry, big time, because I've been in this particular industry for
Well,
such a long
and
time.
stop me if I'm wrong, kind of an easy industry, kind of a transparent sort of stop me if I'm wrong. Like this seems like kind of an easy industry because everything's sort of laid out very simply and it's not like a new tech idea. This is like you're selling a bazooka.
There's room to grow here, right? So you got
Yeah,
to find
yeah.
out, is there room to grow? What's the competition look like? All these kinds of things. And honestly, um, being first to market
Yeah.
is great. It always helps, right? So I just, with all humility, man, I just had a good opportunity. Um, I told those guys, look, I found a product, I found an affordable e-commerce platform for you. I think we should do it. I think we should build a site. They kind of thought, will people really spend thousands of dollars on automatic taping tools, for
Right.
example, online? They really didn't think that anybody would, you know. And it took a little while. But then finally we got our first order. It's so exciting. It's
And to remind our listeners once again, but not to berate the concept that selling stuff online was new. So when Brandon's talking about this company of Allwall, which is now a massive online seller, to entertain the idea of selling stuff online, this was a new territory. This was blue water.
yeah, it was wide open, man. So we, yeah, so all wall, we got a site up and I built them a website. It was crazy. I think I charged them 20,000. I proposed $20,000 to build a website. He came back to me the next day and said 10,000, let's do it, you know? Um, you got to remember, man, I got no kids. I'm a single guy. I
Yeah, but
think,
don't you still have money from Next Host, from selling Next Host? I mean, aren't
but
you like,
it's not about the money. If you make it about the money, guys, if you make any of this about the money, it is going to get in the way of what it's supposed to be. What it's
yeah,
supposed to be is good. It has to be just good. It's got to do good things. It's got to help people. So if you let the money always get in
smart.
your way of doing something good,
Yeah. It's very intelligent. That is an intelligent way of thinking, in my opinion.
if you can find a way to not personally struggle with yourself, overthink it, try to direct it so hard, right? Always try to, you're always trying to be perfect. You're trying to strategize. You got to do these things, but you really have to be open to being flexible, to being pliable, to being liquid. You got to be open to flowing, the ebbs and the flows. You can't let what seems to be a roadblock or a wall stop you. You just have to flow, around it, under it, rise above it. You got to do that without fear. You got to do that without fear of what's going to happen, oftentimes things happen to us and we choose to define it, right? Is it good? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Well, hey, um, you never know. It's just a thing, right? It might feel like a terrible thing. Wow, this was bad. I bombed the interview. I missed my flight. I whatever. It didn't work out, right? And you can get caught up in that mindset where it's bad. But the reality is, if you don't get caught up in that mindset and you're able to flow through it, it could be good. That thing that just seemed like the worst thing ever could have be the best thing ever. You just you, you gotta let go a little bit, you know.
There's parables around that
Yeah.
that's like spiritual teachers will talk about where allowing what is to be, this too shall pass sort of concept.
Well, it's so crazy because, there's, not to get into like religion
Yeah.
per se, because,
We've gotten way into the weeds on the concept of
yeah.
why the fuck are you going? You could do anything you want at this point, Brandon, but you decide to venture into the weeds of the drywall world.
Well,
And this guy comes back to you
just
with
happened to be
you're like,
friendly, just happened to be close. That's another thing. So here you got a company that's going out of business, and I had sold a company that ended up in the wash. It looked like about 170 on paper. It was about 117 when all the deals got done and all the clients converted over. It's about
okay,
117. Out of 117, it's much like us in the world, right? Of you selling to customers. You're selling Fresco Harmony.
Yeah.
But who do you talk to the most? Who sells the most? Who are you most energized? Of all the people that sell your product, why does it happen? Why does it happen that you always talk to this guy more than every other guy? And why is it that he's
Yeah.
doing more of your
Love
sales?
that. I love that shit.
It's just what are the bird with his mouth open gets fed or something like that, right? So it's just like we only have so much time in the day. So if I'm
Yeah.
getting calls from All Wall or Jason, or I'm talking to him about playing video games with him online late at night
Yeah.
or
It's true.
whatever,
It's
like
true.
it's natural, becomes more natural. Why?
I love
Because
it. I
we're
love that
talking
answer.
more. So
I
get
love it.
together with your people, find your people, try to help them. And that just kind of worked out for both of us. I got less than I
Yeah.
wanted but he also wasn't super confident that tools were going to sell online. He really didn't
Okay.
necessarily fully buy in and believe.
He was like, "Hey, I want to
Think
work
when
with
he
you."
threw out 10,000, it was kind of like, well, if I lose 10,000, hey, I can deal with that, but I don't want to lose 20, and that was probably what it kind of
Yeah.
came down to. But what I try to do is I always look for the opportunities for not me, but for the business. So what I really am is kind of a consultant. I
Hmm.
can't help myself because I get in and I get to know your business and I know all the different assets and facets that need to work really well to support everything else, right? You can't just automatically have a ton of sales online and be looking at 1,000 orders on your screen at one time, right? Without
Yeah.
a system to handle that. So I've done that kind of stuff, right? Like I've in my venture through, this being in this industry,
Yeah.
I've set up systems where you can click a button and you can automatically process thousands of orders and with no manual intervention, and nobody really needs to touch them except pressing a button, right?
Cool.
And
Yeah.
everything happens. Two, things like All Wall, where we started off and they had a publisher, a Microsoft publisher document that had their price lists in it. This is a predecessor to like a Word,
Yeah.
it's kind of back, it was just a beginner's
Yeah. I remember Microsoft Publisher.
so they had something and they needed to turn that into a website. Um, I saw an opportunity to create a catalog. That was a big thing at All Wall. Because I saw what they were paying for their printing. They were doing some one color printing of these copies. And I looked at the bill and I was like, you know what? We could probably do full color digital with photos in it. It'll be a smaller format. It won't be as many pages. So we'll really have to focus on key products. But I bet you I can do it for cheaper and it'll be way more effective. So we started doing smaller brochures that were full color with full photos, and we started mailing them to customers.
So
And
you're definitely venturing into marketing at this point. I mean, obviously they all kind of go hand in hand, sales, marketing, internet. But you like are thrusted into this realm,
I'm
and
growing
you're
as
like, I
well.
can do it all. I can do
Well,
it all now.
I grew up in that at that age when you had to do it all, right? Because I was part of that age.
Yeah.
That generation where we didn't have any of this. We didn't have it all defined. And so I just was happened to be in a time period in our culture where a lot of these firsts were being figured out.
It's cool.
And it just happened to be drywall because that was the horse. I mean, that was the guy. I've learned so much more
I
about
love it.
drywall
I
and
love
houses
it.
and ceilings I never expected to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was cool. But getting into the finer details of what would become a digital brochure to an omni-channel giant in 4 years. I mean,
Okay.
4 years is what it really took from 2001 to, well, maybe a little longer than that, 6 years, but to 2007, from when the website launched in '01 to the end of, to say 2008, January. Um, but it was within those first 4 years. By 2005,
Was this the first in the drywall space as far as an online retail concept
so,
doing well?
so there were other companies that were selling online using an e-commerce platform. But what Allwall was the first omni-channel e-commerce, superstore that was mailing catalogs, had a storefront, selling online, doing digital advertising, doing pay-per-click Google advertising, you know. They were kind of doing it all and trying to be the best, trying to focus on building the number one, the best company out there in the marketplace for drywall tradesmen.
Were they the best?
Um, well, everyone's going to have to define what best means to them as a qualifier, but
Sure.
we had we were talking about a
Well,
long time ago,
bottom
which
line
was
can
a
be
team, right? We had a great team that
okay.
understood where we wanted to go. And we
Yeah.
were doing things like going to, this trade show that we go to every year, AWCI's Walls and
Yeah.
Ceilings, Construction Dimensions, shows. There's always these industry trade shows. Well, we were also going to trade shows on marketing, on omni-channel, on cataloging.
Oh,
We were
okay.
deepening our skill set um, to build the biggest e-commerce site in the world for drywall tools. I mean, we were focused on trying to deliver the best of everything. And, it came up with a concept called customer first. Jason and I developed it. I mean, I'm not going to say I, and I think we should all get in the habit of saying we,
Yeah.
you know,
I love
and
it.
because it doesn't really matter, it's always going to be a we, period. There's always a customer that's part of it. It's always a we. You don't have Fresco Harmony because you did anything. You have Fresco Harmony because of the we. But customer first is a concept that, I think really helped us change internally to be able to become a company that could grow. If you're a company that's been in business, and it could be any one of these drywall companies out there, any company out there that's been selling to a specific vertical for a certain period of time, in this case, it was all wall 10 years, you develop, maybe I'm going to call it a love-hate relationship for your customers, right? You got this group of customers that you think, oh, these people, this guy's a real jackass, or whatever, right? And then you
Yeah.
got these other customers that are just like, man, if all my customers could be like this guy, right?
Uh-huh.
So over time, you become battle hardened sometimes.
Yeah.
And internally, you might hear comments, oh yeah, these guys are dumb, or these guys are this and that, right? I'm going to tell you, if you want to grow your business, and you can be, I don't care if you've done it for 10 years or 20 years, there's always a trajectory to be bigger, better, whatever, if that's what you want. In a lot of companies, they just want to stay where they're at, whatever. But this company, in order to really grow, we needed to do a fundamental change within that business. And we really had to come up with what it meant, what it said, what our promise was. And we really needed to truly put the customer first. And that got trained. We had to train, retrain. People had to unlearn. What it really meant to put the customer first. You're not always right. Doesn't mean the customer is always right, but you're not always right. And you can never, ever talk about our customers in a derogatory way, right? Like, I don't care if this guy had a bad day and you got on the phone. We had a call center. I mean, we had 15
Smart.
people answering phones, 15 people at one time. And the phones were, when that phone, we had call queues, we had a very sophisticated system, and we had just desk jockeys answering phones, and we were doing sales training to train all these guys how to deal with all the product issues. Like, we became a much more sophisticated company than a dirty, dusty drywall shop with a few broken chairs and some stuff sitting on the floor that looked like it had been there for years. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We
Yeah.
went from that to expanding big warehouses, making fancier showrooms, having the best in digital and marketing, advertising, and all this growth. So there was a lot to be learned, but you know what? It never would have happened unless the customers became committed, unless the customers felt like, wow, this was all for them. And it was all for them.
Yeah.
That's how we grew, because we turned it into being all for that
Yeah.
customer. And what did that mean? We had to define that,
Yeah.
right? And we had to train our customers on it. We had to say things like, I don't want ever want to hear you say, talk about the dumb drywaller again, or a
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. Like, there's no around the water cooler talk about anything negative. Our customers, man, we need to put them on the pedestal, and we need to understand exactly what their needs are, right? Like, you walk into a lot of these stores and they don't care to ask you any questions. In fact, if you don't come up to the counter, they don't care if you just walk out the door. They're
Yeah.
busy, they're focused on their stuff.
Yeah.
You want to be customer first. You got to learn, what's this guy's name? What does he do every day? When does he wake up? Where does he go? What areas does he
Yeah.
work in? What kind of challenges is he facing? What kind of products is he using now? Hey, what works for you? Because I want to share that with the next guy of what
Yeah.
works. you
Yeah.
you you really have to put that customer first. And then where our big thing was we could apply it through technology, and we could get it to the masses. So we ended up going from saying having what's a mailing list to hundreds of thousands of people, drywallers, on our list that we could communicate with, right? That they could get something in the mail that felt special to them, that we took everything that we had learned from every other cohort in their industry and packaged it together for them. And I feel like when you do things like this, it's the energy, right? It's the energy. They see it doesn't matter. Maybe the graphics not that great, or maybe whatever, but you know what they saw? They saw a human being touch it, right? It wasn't a machine. It was a human being touch it and trying to do something special and different for them, trying to sharpen the pencil a little bit on prices, trying to buy bigger and stock more stuff so you can get it to them faster. Like, in the beginning, all of that mattered. And over time, what do humans always do? We take things for granted eventually,
You fuck
right?
it up. You fuck it up.
Yeah, we fuck things up. We take things for granted,
Mhm.
right? We lose our humility. It's always a battle of always constantly reassessing and readjusting and
Yeah.
recentering ourselves.
Yeah.
We, y- you know, hey man, I love being on here today with you. It's great to see your
Yeah.
face, your smile.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you have found this spot to sit in with these killer headphones and all this stuff, and you're
They're
figuring it
cheap.
out. There's whatever you think would be of value to
Yeah.
share, if it's just stories or you have
No, no, no. I'll tell you right now, and
questions or
I'll
whatever.
edit this how I edit it, but
Yeah.
part one will set you up for part two. So part one is Brandon, the internet. Your experience. I love the graphics talk. I love the marketing talk, and it's certainly the catalyst of All Wall. And then All Wall part two propels you into this industry where you get in touch with a lot of different companies in the drywall industry, your experience with those companies, and how that has fleshed out into SurPro, of course. So we'll land on SurPro as, why the heck did you choose SurPro? Why are these stilts so great? Like that sort of thing. I've got a pair. I haven't gotten to wear them in the field yet, but I take it back. I was wearing like Danny's, I was wearing Chad's, I was wearing Cam's. Like I
Yeah,
wore
it's tough
everybody.
to do. It's
They
tough
were
to
all set
do.
differently,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
mine, like I dialed them in the foot, I have a small foot, so I dialed them all in and they're all like dialed and I'm excited to wear them and I'll keep them good. But we want to give away a pair of two, of course. SurPro will be
Yeah.
sponsoring the Drywall Podcast month of August, I would say.
Okay.
We have Alana with Rocket City Drywall. Do you know her?
I don't. Alana,
Uh,
Rocket City.
so
Drywall. Okay.
her part two just dropped today. So part one was Alana, her history with Rocket City Drywall. She took over her grandfather's company. They're out of Huntsville, Alabama. And then part two, she started developing through the catalyst of Boeing, actually
Mm-hmm.
started to develop a recycled gypsum program where she's doing little bags of recycled gypsum for your garden. So they were seeing a lot of waste, of course, in the drywall space. A third of each piece of sheetrock gets thrown into the dumpster. They're
Yeah.
like, hey, is your company doing anything to thwart the massive waste that we're seeing in the construction industry? And Alana, being the badass that she is, was like, I'm gonna look into this. Now she makes a little product. She's going to like farmers markets and shit. It's the coolest story. But like I get to do that. Like that's my reward. Not selling product, which is also a byproduct of the Drywall Podcast, but my reward is going back to community, like, and what we're talking about, like the energy. Like it's been so cool, and now I get to connect with Brandon. Like it's so cool, you
Yeah.
can't
Well,
you
that's
can't
what
put a
it's all
price on
about.
that.
That's what it's all about, right? I mean, we only have so much time on the earth, and it's going to come down to, who are those people that you will have connected with in your lifetime? Who's going to
Hmm.
remember you when you're gone? Who are
Yeah,
you going to, you know, who you're going to know while you're here? How
yeah,
well are you going to know them? You know,
yeah.
that's all we really have. All this other bullshit, uh, it it's all c'est la vie. It's all goodbye.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all
yeah,
leaving,
yeah,
it's the spirit of you,
yeah,
right? What you leave in somebody,
yeah.
what you remember about them. You're not going to give a shit about, that fancy car they had. You could care
Mm-mm.
less about that whatever material object. You're going to think, well, how'd they make me feel? What would
Hmm.
they say to me now? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
man, I wish I could bounce that off of them. I wish I could hear, it would be so funny. I'm sure, Danny would say something hilarious, right?
Hmm.
Or whatever, right? Like
Yeah,
they're gonna be the spirit of somebody. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And if you haven't, check out the Danny Moody podcast. It's
yeah.
pretty funny. We were watching Tough as Nails while, and then so I'm texting with my girlfriend. I'm texting Danny, like, what the fuck happened here? Why are you guys blah blah blah? And he's like, we should have done this, we should have done that. And seeing Danny and how passionate he was about Tough as Nails, being on that show, what that did for him. And
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea he was on Tough as Nails. I'd never even seen Tough as Nails.
I didn't
I had
either.
no clue.
I was
I
like,
didn't
who's this
know.
bozo riding around on a hoverboard?
You know, I was talking to him like he was just some young drywall guy, and or I decided when I came home, like, man, oh, because I had asked him, hey, everybody out there, drywallers, I got to call your contact. I'm working on a project, and I know Danny was from Spokane. And I was like, oh, hey, Danny, any chance you'd be in the Seattle area to do a drywall job? I need my garage done. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, I'm a couple weeks out for sure, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, cool. I was like, do you have a website? Because I was going to look up his drywall website and, check out his services. And um, I thought when I came home, well, let me see if he has a website. I don't think I asked him that. I just like came home and I was like, oh, let me see what Danny's website is. Maybe I can get some information. And the first thing that popped up was
Yeah.
tough as nails,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Then I found out, okay, well, I'm talking to a guy who's been on
Yeah. Well,
TV.
and not only was he on the show, like he was the star of the show. Like,
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah,
yeah, this drywall guy. It's very funny. It's very well produced. It's pretty good. The guy from Amazing Grace produced Tough as Nails.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. So I had to go look it up and I started watching that. And then I'm like, okay, well, I got to listen to Sean's podcast. I got to listen to your podcast. That's
Brandon Hunter, part one, working with SurPro Stilts now, but do you have a company name or are you just working for SurPro?
Hunter. Let's go by Hunter.
Brandon Hunter, you're the consultant. You're the quintessential consultant.
Well, I'd say what I if I'd say that what I'm really I've been a CEO, right? A
Yeah,
founder and CEO of a drywall company. I was a vice president at All Wall on the board of directors. I was approached while I was there. They were trying to buy us then. Ames was trying to buy us while I was there.
I'll bet.
Um, so I'm in marketing. I'm in
Yeah,
design. Um, I'm in omni-channel, e-commerce, branding, head of brand. I mean, I touch everything. Honestly, if a customer is going to see or touch your logo, I'm going to have an idea of how that should look
hmm,
across every touch point. Um, and varying degrees of brands have different budgets, right? We can only do so much and you can only move so fast.
hmm,
um you got to put your efforts in different places, so it's not like, hey, the perfect solution is always rolled out quickly or day one, and some of the times it takes time to land exactly at your perfect marketing mix or get your brand fully developed the way that you want. But there's a strategy that you can put together to help you do these kind of things over time, and figure out some pillars that can support future growth.
hmm.
So I help people figure out who they really want to be. Where do
Yeah,
they really want, if in a perfect world, where do they want to be?
yeah.
And where are they at now? And what does the customer think they are? So for example, if your business was a car, what kind of car would your business be and
Hmm.
why? What is it? What kind of car is your business? It's a vehicle, it moves down the road, and it's a specific brand because
Hmm.
everybody associates brands with, cars with brands. Like we know what a
Yeah.
hoopty is if you're from Seattle and So Mix-a-Lot.
I've always quasi related Fresco Harmony to the iPhone because I feel like it's that big of a game changer. Like remember when the iPhone came out and you just
No,
look,
no, no iPhone. You don't get to be Apple today. I'm asking you.
well, if it was a car, it would be a Tesla. It would be a Tesla
It would be a Tesla. Okay,
because
interesting.
have you sat or driven in a Tesla?
Oh yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like you drive in one and you're just like, oh, this is the future of automobiles. Like, and so we had a Tesla a few years ago. I mean, my wife drives it. But I remember sitting in my friend Grant's Tesla, and I
Hmm.
mean, say what you will about Tesla, like I don't, I don't care. But that car was designed to be uh like the future of cars. It reminded me of the iPhone as well. Like
Yeah.
as soon as you use the iPhone, you're like, this is the future of phones. As soon as you sit in a Tesla, you're like, this is the future of cars. Like have whatever opinion you want. They're extraordinary, you
Yeah.
know?
So yours is like a cutting edge on you feel your company is on the cutting edge. It's
Yeah. It's a game changer.
breaking new ground. It's fire starter, these
Hmm.
kind of things. It's right out there in front.
It's a disruptor. I think,
It's disrupting. Well, some brands, like you ask somebody a question like that, and someone might think personally, they think, oh, well, I I love Cadillacs or I love Corvettes or they think about what they really like and what they feel like they like to drive or something. That might not necessarily be their business. Their business may be a Honda or a Toyota. And Honda and,
right.
and a
Yeah.
Honda or a Toyota, though, is very reliable, right?
Hmm.
It's got very high value.
Yep.
It's very cheap to drive, and it will
Hmm.
get you from point A to point B
Hmm.
pretty much all of the time without worrying
Hmm.
about breaking down along the way.
Yeah.
Your company may be able to be more profitable and a better company if it's treated and it's positioned as a Honda,
I like
right?
it
You
because,
just you really need to ask a number
yeah.
of questions and you need to learn that market. And I kind of
Yeah.
think who I am is I come in, I look at the market, I see where the dead spots are, see where the holes, I see where the opportunities are. I look at the company, who's behind it, who are the actual players in this company, Stan, Jennifer, Joe, right? Whoever these people are, these are the people. This is the company. Where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? What is this guy going to do best and this guy going to do best? How are we going to come together as a team where we're all enjoying this ride, this
Hmm.
roller coaster we get on together? Okay. And then how do you spend your money wisely to make the biggest impact on the most amount of people at the best value for you? Right? Like, how do you do that? Uh,
Yeah.
when you're a small business, it doesn't matter. Most of these small businesses, these drywallers, they get the majority of their clients come from word of mouth, right? It's all
Hmm.
word of mouth. They're all
Yeah.
subs. It's an interesting conundrum,
A
man.
lot of them don't have websites. Like you going to look for Danny's website. I was kind of laughing. I was like, I doubt he has a website.
Well, I've heard so many like it's like sometimes people are so busy, some of these companies are so busy that they don't.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to a boat building company. Okay. I was talking to the company that does all of the interiors on the finest yachts in the world, sailboat manufacturer, the yachting world. Okay. So they'd
Hmm.
be the company that would put fine linen or polo Ralph Lauren tartan, fabrics in the insides of the fanciest yachts in the world. And I had a crossover business that was working with these guys and this and that, and they were really growing. And I was talking to this company. And they were sitting on their high horse, like, yeah, I don't need a website. We're so busy. We got word of mouth. I mean, I've got jobs for lined up for the next 2 months, 6 months,
Mhm.
whatever. Man, we have stuff lined up for a year. These companies are the same company that calls me back in 2 years and says, we need your help. Because markets shift and markets change. And you know what? You don't just put oil in your car when the light comes on, when it's warning you, right? You put oil in your car every 3,000 miles. Why? To keep the whole thing running smooth, to keep it going, to keep it ready, to make
Mhm.
sure that you've got an engine that will do hundreds of thousands of miles. You're going to put that $100 in every couple months or whatever to get your synthetic oil in. But if you do it every couple months, that thing's going to last you a long time. You don't put the oil in when the thing is smoking and expect it to run. So a lot of these guys that think, oh, I don't need to do that. I'm so busy right now. Well, what happens? Things like COVID happen, right? Things like market changes, the
Mhm.
Great Recession, the housing crash, the company that was 80% of their business drops them.
Yeah.
Now
The,
what do they
the
have?
.com
You
demise.
got all this stuff. So you have to think beyond what's right in front of you. You have to be a visionary. And a lot of times visionaries get called dreamers, right? But you know what? Nothing good has ever been done without a dream. And that's what I am. I'm a visionary, a bit of a visionary, and I can see not just what's in front of me, but maybe part of my downside sometimes. And I'm not trying to say this like in all humility. Being a
Mhm.
visionary sometimes takes you away from right here and puts you way down here. And I'm trying to see where are we going to, okay, we need to get into e-commerce now. No, you need to start a platform called Drywall Nation now. You need to get
Mhm.
away from it being precision taping or whatever. And you need to separate because you're bigger than this and you're going to be able to effectively communicate with more people by giving them a platform rather than them being on your same page, right? If I'm
Yeah.
precision taping and this other guy is precision drywall, we're peers. But if I'm Drywall Nation and I create community where every precision taping, drywall, supply, and tools can all come in together, now I got community. So, it's
Yeah.
just trying to see down the road a little bit and then balancing that with the everyday grind, baby. There's
Mhm.
no, hey, a lot of people say stuff like work smarter, not harder. Okay, well, I'm
Yeah.
working as smart as I can. Now what?
Uh-huh.
Well, I guess it's time to work harder
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you've worked about as smart as you can. So these are the kind of principles that I take, and this is what helped build All Wall. And it was my youth, and I'm not saying follow this path, guys, because
Yeah.
it's not always the best way to do
Yeah.
it. But when you're working smart and you think you've got things dialed and you're super efficient here and all cylinders are firing, well, what else? If you're willing to put in that extra time, I don't know if it's going to pay off. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. There's other things that are more important than money.
Mhm.
But one thing I thought is, okay, well, I know all this stuff is working so well. I know we've got this dialed, but now what? I said, I'm going to work when I know they're not working. I'm going to work when they're not.
Mhm.
So I'm working late. I'm pulling all-nighters. I pulled a 48-hour shift before at all.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
let's just shut her down.
we'll
Yeah.
just shut her down. There's no appropriate way to do it. Brandon Hunter, part one, SurPro Stilts. We will get into Drywall Nation, Wall Tools, all of the companies that you've worked with in drywall on the next episode. Thank you so much for being on the Drywall Podcast today. I hope
Thank you.
you have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
Huge shout out to Brandon for joining us on the Drywall Podcast today. I know you are a busy man, and I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this story and how you hooked up with SurPro Stilts and your journey through some of these other companies. The Drywall Podcast can be listened to every Friday on your favorite platforms like Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also YouTube. I generally post the video version on YouTube on Thursday at 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, preceding the launch of the audio version on Friday. So you can always get a sneak peek of the video on YouTube prior to the audio version being released. Big shout out to Rocket City Drywall and Alana Black for sponsoring the Drywall Podcast in the month of June. Here are some accolades that may or may not be worth mentioning about Alana. She was VIP of the Year, Chamber of Commerce 2016, Female Entrepreneur of the Year, Women's Business Center 2018, Alabama Small Business Person of the Year, SBA Washington, D.C. 2019. And that last one is probably the most significant. The Federal Small Business Administration selects one nominated business owner from each state annually to be awarded in D.C., and that was her. You can check out her story on episodes 96 and 97 of the Drywall Podcast. Trust me, they're good. Join us next Friday for an exciting new episode of the Drywall Podcast. It will either be Brandon Part 2 or Paps Dugan. Paps was our very first interviewee on the Drywall Podcast, and I would like for him to be also number 100. But until then, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and remember, keep drywalling.